Cupcakes per month may notice reduced speeds. Video streams at up to 40p. No tethering. See store for details and terms and conditions.
Well, good evening, everyone, and welcome to Mack Maloney's Military Exile Show here on the Distant Thunder Radio Network. This is Mack Maloney. We have a very interesting show for you tonight. But first, as always, obligated by our contracts, I have to introduce the posse in order. This would be the fourth week in a row for my friend here.
Yes, sir.
The very famous Juan-Juan is
yes. Here. Week number 4.
Week number 4 in a row at the New Digs.
You know, my goal is like to be in the teens.
In the teens.
At least.
That's a streak.
Yeah.
Okay.
It would be.
All right. Interesting clothes on you tonight. You have your what do you call that hat? That's the
5 Super Bowls hat.
Yeah, with the mistake on
with
it, right?
With the mistake.
Okay.
For the Roman numeral mistake on Super Bowl 49.
Okay. All right. And that would be 1 before L.
X before L.
X
that would
before,
be 4. The 40.
Yeah.
X before L. X
Already.
is 10. L is 50.
Okay. Already
so
confused.
The lower number, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah. Okay.
But then the 9 is supposed to be IX. Everybody knows
IX.
9.
Okay.
If
yeah.
you had a Roman numeral clock.
Yes. You would know.
Which everybody did in my age bracket.
Right.
Or a Roman numeral pocket watch.
You
flipped over the thing.
Really?
Was,
you remember Roman numeral pocket watches?
Yeah, I do.
How old are you?
I wanted to get another one. Yeah. I got to go to a place that sells, jewelry from dead people.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Well, that sounds like a pleasant
estate
trip.
sale.
Okay.
And get one. My grandfather had one.
Let me. Hold it right
jewelry
there.
from dead people.
Right.
All right.
I have to. I can see. I can feel the virtual steam running out.
And that's the part that I withhold because I go. I don't know. It's estate jewelry. People had to sell it because they need the money to pay off somebody.
That bothers you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
That's
conscience. That's okay. Yeah.
Plus, they're from dead people.
Right. Yeah. Well,
who knows what vibe you're going to get from them?
That's true. Anyway, speaking about vibes, also on the line with us tonight from a undisclosed location. They call him Coco on the streets, and apparently they call him Coco in Hollywood, too. That's the #1 movie.
I know it.
An animated adaptation of Cobra as a young boy.
Were you a spiritual advisor for that?
Yeah, sure. Spiritual and, a ghost of a paycheck, that type of thing. Commander Cobra is with us tonight. There he is.
Good evening, gentlemen. Dead man walking, dead man pocket watch walking.
Yeah.
All that glitters is gold. I mean, there's so many things that was written down. I was acting out here.
You flip the pocket watch, the cover of it. There's a picture of what? Your wife or your girlfriend or something.
Go ahead.
Or an inscription.
Yep.
Yeah. Or both.
Just a Red Bull, folks.
And it fits so nicely in your pocket. It had the chain. I remember I used to play with clocks when I was a kid.
Wow.
How weird is that? I guess I didn't have any electric trains.
So, a quick question, Mr. Timekeeper.
Yeah.
Your recent lack of activity and contact with Mr. Brady, is that was responsible for the reported events of his misbehavior with management on his team?
Maybe.
Yeah.
It gave him a bad attitude, I guess.
Yeah. He was a little catty on the sidelines.
He and I haven't been texting back and forth as much as we used to.
See, it might be affecting him. You never know. You assume it wouldn't affect him, Juan-Juan.
You're being a little selfish, Juan-Juan.
I know it.
Yeah.
I really need to get back in the game.
Yeah, okay. The thing is...
Well, I just got a new Facebook account.
Oh, you did?
I hadn't been on Facebook ever. So about 3 or 4 weeks ago, I finally got on Facebook. So I'm trying to friend the guy. I'm trying to friend Tom Brady, but it hasn't been happening.
Do you know who else never had a Facebook account?
Who?
Zuckerberg. Oh, Hitler.
Who? Hitler? Yeah. Yeah, right. What would he have done?
He would have been an interesting Facebooker, don't you think?
Yeah. Yes. I think we're going to be talking a lot about Adolf tonight, just as things come together. I mean, not him. We are going to be talking about him, but we're also talking about, the Nazis, this whole Nazi thing that he started over them. I mean, there's all kinds of documentaries on the Mystery Channel and the History Channel and the Military Channel about Hitler. They might as well just call them the Hitler Channel.
Sure.
Right? But what he did over there is like crazy, and it's one of these things that some of the stuff you just can't explain. First of all, he had 42 assassination attempts on his life, okay, and never got hurt because at the last minute for a lot of them, he would like simply say, "Oh, I'm going here instead of there." He had this sixth sense about it. 42 times people tried to kill that guy. That's amazing. And nothing happened to him, all right? And also, when they came to power in 1938, one of the things they made compulsory for public employees is everyone had to greet each other with the Heil Hitler sign and the salute, okay? Just basically civil workers had to do that, right? Within 2 months, everyone in Germany was doing it. So if
you're just a schmuck cleaning the toilet, when you
if you're on the public dole, you had to do it.
Okay.
But in 2 months, the entire country was doing it to each other. That it caught on like you wouldn't believe, you know. It's just like you had the people just so, I don't know, what's the word, Cobra? Just in his power and his.
Well, there's a lot of psychological power going on, especially the way they organize those big rallies with the drums. And it's like a throwback to Roman times.
Yes, exactly.
He had a very strange fascination with the power of church and symbolism. The Nazi cross is actually a symbol that came from, I believe, a Catholic church. And don't quote me on it. I do remember seeing that there was devices like it in the Hindu faith. It's reversed. But he understood the power of symbol and symbolism, and he transcended Catholicism, Christianity into. He wanted to go back to this early Teutonic, medieval, pagan kind of worship thing that he understood. Getting people to be part of, the rally movement and the whole thing. Now you take a country like Germany that was in the absolute dirt after World War I. It led to the rise of someone like this very easily when you look back at it. But I'm going to pose a question to you: who was worse? Who killed more people, Stalin or Hitler?
Only Cobra would ask that.
I'll have to Google it.
Stalin killed more people.
Yeah, I would think so.
Yeah, but Hitler is considered worse because he did his killings based primarily on socio or racial
the racial
lines.
Factor, right? The Russians
where Stalin was equal opportunity. Anyone he didn't like died.
Wholesale killing.
Or went into his gulag system. But the
absolutely
people do not realize the advances that were made by the Germans.
Wow.
And they're able to hang on. They had unbelievable records that they kept about how they worked their slave labor.
Oh, yeah.
With minimal calories to get the most work out of them and to have
before
them
they drop dead and you bring someone else in.
It seemed like they had everything they did down to a science.
Well, see, that's what caught them all in the end, because they wrote everything down and they knew who ran the camps and all that stuff, So it came back to bite them on the ass, But
I will propose this, gentlemen.
Okay.
In the last 3-4 months, there have been a number of recent discoveries in South America, in Argentina, that lend a lot of credence that Hitler, using a body double, may have escaped. And escaped to Argentina. By sub. And the tests that were done on the body that was reported to be Hitler.
Burnt.
The burned body, but the parts that they recovered, when they did a DNA test, they found out it was actually a woman's body that the Russians had claimed was the skull and the fragments when they did the DNA run. And then after that, the Russians never allowed the remains to be examined by anybody else. So even in his death, the symbolism and the power of who got him, how he died, who had the body, all those things just are amazingly.
He would have had to have lived now, a lot of them did go down. A lot of Nazis did.
It was a bona fide program. They knew when things weren't going their way that they had set up a major.
In Argentina, also Paraguay, right?
Yes, and Uruguay.
So
all those countries there, but in particular, Argentina at one point was rivaling the United States for European settlement in the 10s and the 20s. And then the Depression made it. My great grandmother was an Italian born in Argentina, and then came to the United States because that's the reason why you have so many people that were fascinated by Hitler and by Mussolini because they had come from those segments of society that were still very much in the imperialistic or the other aspects of society that believe, you can use fascism in a good way.
As
long as you're on the right side of it, I can you.
Sure. I'll tell you, something about the Argentinians. first of all, I suppose that a lot of these people escaped there, because it's not bad weather down there. You know what I mean? It's not like crazy.
It's very much like the United States in many aspects of it.
And you would see their. I remember seeing a picture of like their army in the 70s, and they're in complete Nazi regalia, the hat, that kind of helmet that the Nazis all wore.
Yeah. Not just that, Mac. My God, I mean,
the brigand, the boots up
the disappearing of people.
Yeah, and they were really into that. The missing people, and they would take people, and they would in Chile, was that Argentina too? They would just. If you're a nuisance, they take you up in a helicopter, fly you out over the ocean, just kick you out of the helicopter. No one found your body, nothing, and they did this to thousands of people. But I'll tell you one thing. They f***ed up in the Falkland Islands, man. When you ever read anything about that war and how it happened and why they did it, and they just
they misjudged the resolution of the Brits.
Yeah, I guess they did, But it was one of these things where the diplomats used to meet twice a year, like they did it for decades. Do you want the Falklands? Give us back the Falklands. The British say, no, we're not going to do it. Okay, let's have lunch. That's literally what it was. And then one day, a new group came in, and they said, we really want them. And the British go, tut-tut, no, that stuff. Yeah. And then all of a sudden, they have a war down in Antarctica, it couldn't be more out to sea than out there. And they did it, and they won. The Brits won,
But the amazing thing about that war was the near apex of a lot of the most current technology was put to its limits there.
Absolutely. Yep. A lot of new stuff.
Strategic bombing that had not been seen since World War II was accomplished. Absolute deception. The Argentinians had an airfield that was hit by runways. They would put the dirt on the runway every morning after flying missions out of there at night to make it look like it was still cratered. Yeah, so when they overflew it, it looked like it was cratered. Then they would pull the dirt off and go and after they repaired the runway to keep the Brits from coming back and doing another attack. One of the Vulcan bombers couldn't make it back and landed in and was interned in Brazil. I mean, it's just amazing the stuff went on. And I mean, there was an incredibly high death toll.
Yeah, it was
in combat to exocets that hit Brit ships. Stuff that went on.
Yeah, the Brits, there was 300 British soldiers died and about 1,000 Argentine soldiers.
You know what? I don't recall a lot of news coverage on that war. Why was that?
It was
that just me watching too much?
It was funny.
It's not us. It wasn't ours, so that was part of it.
But it was. I was in England during that.
I mean, where was John Cameron Swayze? I wanted to know.
No, he was. What you remember is that Haig was the Secretary of State, and he kept getting in an airplane going. It was the first shuttle diplomacy. He'd fly over there. He'd fly down to Argentina. He'd fly up here. He'd do this thing, And finally, the United States had to side with. They're both allies. They had to side with the British.
Yeah, flip a coin.
And
we had to side with the British.
Hey, Mac. Can I make a quick mention for a friend of mine?
Yes.
Tony McNally, McNally. He is a veteran of that war, and he's written a book called Screaming in Silence.
Oh, cool.
Poetry of a Combat Veteran. He's a leader in the PTSD world long before it was fashionable, and he's got a great website. Just look up Tony McNally or Screaming in Silence.
Oh, cool.
It's a great book. His book's it's a continuous set of poetry that he wrote. It was inspired by his experience there. So
poetry.
He's a great guy. Yep.
Poetry. Okay. All right. Let's have him on.
Now the Screaming in Silence, is that like a metaphor for the outside world not really knowing what the heck is going on over there?
I'm going to say get the book, Juan-Juan.
The
same thing I told
you.
Hey, that Maloney guy that you're always talking about, do you have any of his books? I said,
I do.
You can get Books A Million, Amazon.
He hasn't read them.
It's dog-eared like crazy. Key parts I need to
How many Sky Club CDs have I given you? At least 10.
I've got 2.
Yeah, they've all gone out.
And, he just listened to it for the first time like 2 weeks ago. Thank you, buddy.
Who did?
Juan-Juan.
Yeah. Oh, my goodness.
Yeah, I know.
And it is excellent.
So, yeah, sure.
Oh, my God. I love that.
That would have sounded a lot better 7 years ago and 10 CDs ago, my friend.
Okay. You didn't give me anything 10 years ago.
The first time you ever fixed my computer, I gave you this.
No way.
See, all of a sudden.
I don't remember that.
This is why I have to time date everything,
Okay. Hey, listen, well, this is a interesting opening to the show, so why don't we do this? Why don't we take a commercial break now, and when we come back, we're going to be talking to a gentleman whose father was in the OSS, and after World War II went over and captured German scientists for us, for the goodies, so they wouldn't fall into the hands of the baddies, the Russians.
Nice.
So
Good work there.
Interesting show, interesting segment. So you're listening to Mack Maloney's Military Exile Show here on the Distant Thunder Radio Network. We'll be right back after this. Welcome back, everyone, to Mack Maloney's Military Exile Show here on the Distant Thunder Radio Network. This is Mack Maloney. In the studio with us tonight, he is here 4 weeks in a row. The very famous Juan-Juan.
That's right. I'm going to beat their Celtics record.
Okay, 21, 24, 20 and 20 and 4 or something. 21 and 4.
Well, 21 and 4. But how many games? 16 in a row or something?
Yeah. They're great. You know, it's just too bad they play in the same city as the Patriots. You know what I mean? They would be on top of the world if.
I know.
But anyway, we won't go there, because also calling in from his undisclosed location, they call him Coco on the streets. It's Commander Cobra is with us.
Good evening, gentlemen.
Wow. How about that for a basic? What, are you right on the microphone there, my friend?
No, I'm actually sitting on the other side of the room.
There you go. Okay. How come you're not on camera tonight?
I'm never on camera.
We've seen you,
Yes,
Bunker.
you are.
We've seen
Yes,
you.
I'm usually, but I have costume on so that my identity cannot be seen. Would you really like to see me on camera tonight?
No,
Is that what you think?
Never mind.
Listen, if you're not on camera, why do you have a costume on? That's the first question I'd come up with.
He's going to have that Major Mud outfit on, you know. He's going to look like, you know, with his gear on, his knife in his mouth, and the whole deal, like he just went
a
on
lot of oral fixation.
Like he just went on a mission.
I'm a little concerned with where this is going lately.
We always wonder where you are. We said, well,
You're not talking to Tom Brady now, so
Mac always says, "Well, Cobra's on a mission."
Yeah, right.
And I'm assuming that no, he's not on a mission. He's like in the missionary position. That's
come on.
That's what he's doing.
Where did that come from?
I don't know, but you know, it's on a mission stuff. That's what he's doing.
You know, Mrs. Cobra. What's the matter with you?
That's true. I know. I'd be in the missionary position too if I was him.
Oh, wow.
You know what the Chinese say?
What?
When one is in a hole and wants to get out of it, stop digging.
Stop digging.
Yes, please stop digging.
I've gone with my Jim Jones look for you tonight.
Oh, really? Oh, I guess we're gonna have to bring that on the screen. How do we do that?
Go to your conversation box there and hit the screen. You'll see me.
Did I just dump Chuck? Chuck?
No.
Okay, hang on.
Chuck's still there.
Chuck, I just want to introduce Chuck Stansburge is also with us, a friend calling us from way out there in Nebraska. How you doing, Chuck?
Pretty good.
Well, that's good. All right, we're going to get this straightened out for us. Cobra, we can't see you. It's a radio show. If you want to dress up and have no camera on, that's your thing, man. It's 2017.
Well, the camera's on. So, you know, you're calling me out, and then because you have technical inability, now it's my fault. Okay. So,
why are you in a costume if the camera isn't on?
He said the camera's on. All I was seeing is
but it was
logo.
Before he put the camera on, he was there in a costume. So he was concerned that people were seeing him, but you need anyway.
He likes to dress up.
I'd say, listen, I didn't want to get down that road, but luckily you did. Yeah. So are you through there? Are you?
Thank you, Mr. Pocket Watch.
There you go.
We always used to play dress up when we were kids. You didn't play dress up?
No, I didn't. No.
Nurse
so
doctor?
Surprised for one.
Yeah.
He puts a whole different spin on your stickball story now, too.
Listen.
I could have beaten his butt in stickball.
Oh, hey, let's not talk about sticks, butts, beaten. This is a new age we live in.
I don't want to have to call you out. Father O'Reilly
from Mack Maloney X-Files that has to leave the show for 4 months because of incorrect sexual innuendo or behaviors.
Speaking of Father O'Reilly, the church I used to go to in Charlestown was just unbelievable. And you know how ornate.
Yeah,
and the one in Cambridge.
They all are, yeah. That's where the money went.
Catholic churches, I mean, like the Pope would have really liked these churches. Unbelievable.
Yeah, same thing with our church. I mean, you walked into it and it really kind of awed you, you know. Yeah. And it's the whole idea, you know, and they want you to think that.
You felt like you were there with Christ and God and
right up there, yep.
Jehovah.
Yep.
Mary, Joseph.
I got to say, I never liked going to church 1 second of it.
Did you ever do the Stations of the Cross?
Oh, yeah, I used to read them. I used to lead the gang around.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, not fun. School and church, could have done without, really, because I always wanted to be somewhere else, you know?
Yeah. I had some fond memories, though.
Anyway,
Chuck.
Well, listen, so our good friend Charles Don't Call Me Chuck Stansburge is on the line with us. It's been a while since we've talked to him because you were down in Texas near Houston, the stripper capital of the world, and now you're up in Nebraska somewhere, right?
Yep, sure am.
Okay. And but you're still seeing your friends up in outer space? They know where you are?
Yes, I am. They know where I'm at.
Oh, good. So what have you done? Have you been up there lately? We should explain to people that Chuck leads a lifestyle that I think all of us would like to lead. He has friends in high places, just happens to be up in outer space.
Right.
And every once in a while, when they need his help, they'll transport him up to their ship. He has an adventure, and he comes back, and he usually is back the next day right in your recliner chair, right? Falling asleep, waking up in your recliner.
He's the commander of his own group, right?
I don't know. Update us. Yeah, update us on your status, please.
Yeah, I'm what they call a lieutenant commander. I've got 5 ships and 2 wings. And,
wow. Okay.
So we go around our galaxy, at certain times, and I send them each different places, and we keep talking to each other and stuff and making sure what's going on, and if there's anything going on. So most of the time we have pretty good drive, because a lot of times we'll go into near a planet.
Yep.
And to see what's going on, and
yep.
If they're going to be okay, then what we do is we try to hail them somehow, and we go down there and talk to them and so on and so forth. And I have several different people that do the talking, because I don't know what the languages are.
Right. Okay. Yep. Understandable.
And I'll tell you what, some of them, it kind of boggles my mind how they talk.
Right. Sure.
And what they do as far as people themselves, how they live.
Right.
This and that, and I kind of enjoy it.
Let me ask you a question. How about if you go to one of these planets and it looks like that they're not going to be good guys, that they're not going to go along with everything? What if it's, kind of hostile? What happens then?
Well, most of the time, if we run into somebody like that, they just don't want to be, they don't want to be bothered or anything.
Right.
And we just leave them alone, let them do their thing.
Okay.
And as long as they don't do anything.
Right.
Around.
What if they step out of line, though? If they step out of line, do you have to go down there and slap them around a little bit, or?
No, we give them a warning, and most of the time they do heed the warning. Like say, "Oops,
right,
we can't do that."
Right. I suppose if someone came down from outer space and was, basically talking to you, you'd probably heed the warning. You know.
Yeah. They wouldn't take too kindly, maybe, to your antagonism.
Right. Yeah.
Or it could be misinterpreted antagonism.
Yeah. Wow. Well, so go ahead. So now you go out on patrol with these ships and looking for bad guys, basically, right?
Yeah, making sure that the galaxy is safe. We have 3. I think it's 3 different types of beings that are here in our galaxy, plus some that are on Earth as well.
Okay.
I think you guys know.
Okay.
And it helps out a heck of a lot. And if anybody tries to come in towards our galaxy, we are there quick and trying to say, hey, no, you can't come through here. Just leave. If you don't leave, if you don't heed our warning,
right,
then
it's like a big galactic fence. Well, not right.
The intergalactic police.
More or less.
Yeah. The border fence. You can't come over the fence. Well, I'll tell you, I'm glad someone's out there, keeping us safe in the entire galaxy.
Would you guys see any missiles that were launched and traversing the skies? And could you intercept them and either redirect them or blow them up?
Well, pertaining to what?
Like, let's say that the guy in North Korea, he blew one up.
Would they be able to, step in?
It?
Yeah, step in and prevent.
We probably could.
Okay.
We probably could, but as far as the consortium is saying,
right,
you do not interfere to any other.
Maybe they can make they can make an exception this time. Right. Okay, so tell them to
what
interfere.
Okay.
They'd
be neutral.
If you notice what they do, on some of the things about the missile silos.
Right. Yeah. Okay.
That's basically being a warning, saying, "Hey, you
Right.
don't want to do this."
Let me ask you this now: are you still with your galactic wife? I know that you're kind of a space Mormon. You're right. You have a wife here down on Earth, but you have a wife up there in the cosmos too, right?
Well, she's not really my wife. She's just the mother of my child.
You're the baby daddy then.
All right.
Yeah, I have a daughter.
As the kids say.
And
okay.
And she's really pretty, and she loves Daddy.
Okay.
Every time I go up there and see her, or either that they come up on board ship, and
right.
She just comes over and hugs me, and then we go in and play a little bit with any things that she wants to play with, because she knows a lot of the different types of Earth toys and everything too. You know.
Oh,
so
good.
That's good.
Okay. And how about the baby mama? Are you still dating her? Are you still in a good friendship, friendly basis with her?
Oh,
Are
yeah.
you buddies? I guess is what Mac's trying to ask.
Yeah. I'm leaving out the first word, but buddies, yes, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, we're friends.
Okay. Friends with benefits, as Juan-Juan likes to say. Is it? You can tell us, Chuck, who's going to know.
I don't think so, not that way. But
well, it happened at least once, right? You got one past the goalie at least once.
That was because they just took the DNA.
Okay. Oh, wow. Okay. So, I mean, you've described her to us before, but, for our new listeners, we have a expanded audience now these days. What does she look like? I know that she's tall, correct?
Well, yeah, she's a tall, gray lady.
Okay.
She's like about 8 foot, 8.5 foot.
Wow. Okay.
And when I see her, I have to look up at her and talk to her, But,
okay.
They got a beautiful place. It's a pretty close planet, not too far.
Okay.
And we go there once in a while to see her and to see the kid, and we kind of just go over into where the waterfalls are and where the ocean is, and just kind of sit around and
nice
just chat.
Nice. So, but do you remember that night of erotica and love when you?
Well, you're really getting personal.
Well, I'm interested to know what interspecies sex is like, frankly.
Yeah, I understand that.
Do you remember it, or did they get you drunk and?
No, I had no idea.
You had no idea.
The equipment's the same, right?
Is the equipment the same?
I don't know. I don't know. I have no idea.
Oh wow. Okay. All right.
But when they took my DNA,
yes,
and put it with her DNA, I guess.
Oh.
And when our daughter was born.
Oh, that's how it happened.
That's when I went up there. They said, "We got a surprise for you." And I said, "Okay." And so when we got up there, it kind of cracked me up, because once we got off the ship and was heading towards the house, I thought, "Why are we here?" There was two. Let's see, one of the beacons, and then one of the other grays, big guys.
Okay.
And anyway, once we landed, and we started walking towards the house, she come out with my daughter.
Yep.
Who was about maybe 2 years old.
Okay.
Looking like 2 years old. And when we stopped, I said, "Oh, she's a beautiful little thing. Who is she?" And all three of them, the two with me and then her, all three of them said at the same time, "Yours."
Wow. Okay.
Good job.
I said, "Okay."
All right. So you're saying that they took your DNA, they took her DNA, and they just stirred them together, and then somehow were the drinks and dinner involved or anything, or
nothing like that?
Okay. All right.
Smoothie.
Okay. Smoothie. Holy cow. Well, I'll tell you what, Chuck, I'm glad that you got back on the show with us. It's been too long. It was like 2 or 3 months that we hadn't talked to you because you were moving up to Nebraska. Do you like Nebraska?
Yeah, it's pretty good.
Okay.
It gets cold and
right,
and it gets snowy and stuff, because I'm used to that, because I was raised in Colorado.
Any of that hippie trash up there? I know that you used to slap me around a little bit in Colorado when you were a state cop, right?
Yeah.
You were protecting us down there and up there. Well, Chuck, hey, listen, thanks very much for joining us. We really appreciate it. We really like having you on.
Yeah, thank you, Chuck. It was a nice graphic segment.
You're more than welcome.
All right, and we'll talk to you soon. And if we don't talk to you soon enough, have a nice Christmas and so on, both down here and up there.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. You too. Have a nice Christmas.
There he goes.
All right, talk to you
Both
later.
of you.
Chuck Stansburge, man. We haven't talked to him in a long time.
I know.
One of our favorite guests. So why don't we take a commercial break now, and we'll be right back after this. You're listening to Mack Maloney's Military Exile Show here on the Distant Thunder Radio Network. Stay tuned. Hey, welcome back to Mack Maloney's Military Exile Show here on the Distant Thunder Radio Network. This is Mack Maloney, and the studio tonight is the very famous Juan-Juan is here.
Hello, Mac. How's it going?
Okay, and also from a undisclosed location, actually right down the hall from us, Commander Cobra is with us as well.
Good evening.
Okay, we might have mentioned this before, but we are in our new radio studio.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
It really is. It really
is.
It's not overly.
Truly is the Pistol Pete complex.
Yeah, I'll say. And we were in Newburyport, Mass. for a long time, but now we're in Exeter, New Hampshire. And as much as I like Newburyport, the view from here is a lot better. So the view out back is like $1 million view, you know?
I know.
You can just see the UFO over the 9th hole.
Right,
I mean, it's amazing.
The Exeter Golf Club, I figure we could sneak on at the 8th hole someday and play through.
Yeah, we got Phillips Exeter Academy around the corner. And
Yep. Ducks in the little river out back. Right. And we're in the middle of a neighborhood, which is really the strangest thing of all.
That's right. Totally incognito.
It looks like a house with a big tower in back of it. So anyway, we're having fun here anyway. So
they're going to disguise it as a pine tree or something.
Hey, listen, if the UFO is going to go anywhere, I see it hovering over that thing, to tell you the truth, fueling up. Right. Also sitting in with us is superfan Barbara With is here.
Hello, boys.
Just to class up the whole situation.
Somebody's got to do it.
Right. That's right. It's a hard job, too.
My glasses are fogging up again.
Again, well, okay.
Goodness.
So listen, on the phone with us is someone that I've been wanting to talk to for quite a while. I'm a friend of his son's, and one day his son came up to me, Mike, and said, hey, you want to hear this story? And he told me this incredible story about, basically he told me about this book that his father had written about his father, someone who in World War II was recruited by what we would call the CIA these days, but it was the OSS, Office of Strategic Services. Is that right, Cole?
That's correct.
Okay. And at the end of World War II, and there's been movies, books, many books written about this, but not quite a book like this. We basically went over to Europe. They sent very educated people over to Europe to track down and to find and to escort and, let's say, offer asylum to German scientists to come over to the United States, work for us. And, the long and short of it is those German scientists actually were the foundation of NASA, and they put us on the moon. It's
to make a long story short.
As crazy as it sounds, that's what happened.
And they were happy to do it. So
right.
Did we pay them?
Oh, yeah, I'm sure. Maybe, who knows, and what? Venus schnitzel or something like that. What is that, a sausage?
It's kind of like veal, I think.
Oh, is it really? Okay. Barbara, would you know?
Wiener Schnitzel is like a pork, and it's gently cooked in a batter and fried, pan fried. Jaeger Schnitzel actually is my favorite. That's called Hunter's pork.
A lot of Wiener Schnitzel is eaten in Wisconsin.
Really? Okay.
There's a lot of Germans.
Right?
Okay.
Yeah, I guess it would be.
Yes.
Cobra said something about 20 seconds ago that sounded a little too, so here we go. Anyway, so on the phone with us is Bob Jamison. He's going to talk to us about his father, Jim Jamison's mission. World War II, Soldiers and Scientists is the name of the book. How are you doing there tonight, Bob?
Doing good. Thanks very much.
Now, you're down in Winter Haven, Florida, right?
Right.
Okay. Did you get hit by the latest hurricane?
Yes, unfortunately, we did.
Okay.
And we did suffer a little bit of damage, but it was actually from the tornadoes that spun out from the hurricane.
Wow. If you don't have enough problems with a hurricane, it's causing tornadoes as well. So anyway, well, listen, this book is really something else, and I'm so glad I was able to get a copy and read it. I'm just going to try to thumbnail it real quick, and then you can fill in the blanks. Okay, basically, your father was approached sometime during World War II with, let's say, a special mission to go over to Europe and to kind of track down these German scientists and try to get them to come over to the U.S. and work for the U.S. government. Is that the thumbnail?
Yes, that's the thumbnail.
Okay. But he had such interesting adventures when he was over there, Could you tell us about when he? Well, let's start at the beginning. He was not an officer, correct?
That's correct. Actually, he worked in research as a civilian initially at Aberdeen Proving Ground, and then he was able to get out of 2 drafts by the colonel who needed him working on the weapons refinement and early rocket research. But after a couple of deferments, then he was drafted. But then the colonel was able to get him back to work at Aberdeen Proving Ground on the same project after boot camp. And then a year later is when the Army needed him to go to Germany to do 2 things. First of all, to go around and rummage through buildings and previous outposts where the Germans or the Nazis were, to find any weapons that were advanced over the U.S. Army's weapons, and then write an analysis and send those back. And that was a pretty short-term assignment. Then, working for Army intelligence, he was assigned this secret assignment to help to find these rocket scientists. They were German rocket scientists who had worked on the U-2 project, the V2 project, and tried to bring them back. But the dangerous thing about that was that the Russians wanted them and the British wanted them also. And they had this agreement with Operation Paperclip, where the 3 allies worked together to try to identify these scientists and bring them back. Mm-hmm. But the U.S. kind of trumped that by a super secret mission, which was not known to anyone except Eisenhower and a few others. It was approved by the Pentagon to assign 20 soldiers to go. Some of them were enlisted, some of them were officers, to find these scientists. And my father was just a corporal, but his background was in some rocket exploration, working with some at Aberdeen Proving Ground.
Right.
So that's how he got drawn into it.
Now, Aberdeen is still there, and that's where they test like a lot of new up-and-coming weapons and so on, right?
That's exactly right.
Right. So now I just want to explain to people that Operation Paperclip, the way it used to go, and the reason it got that name is, if you were someone, this is at the end of World War II now in Europe, and it was like really chaotic, just crazy, right? So if you were someone who the U.S. government wanted to offer you a job, scientists and so on, and they wanted to kind of forget all that kind of nasty Nazi stuff, right? They would put a paperclip on your visa application or something, and the people letting people in and out, when they saw the paperclip, they would just basically wave these guys through. So that's how it was called, Operation Paperclip. Okay, so but your father he wasn't an officer, but he knew, like rocket science, he knew all this kind of stuff. So did the government go right to him and say, hey, listen, we're going to give you the secret mission, or did he go into the service first and then they contacted him?
Yeah, he had been in the service about a year, still working at Aberdeen Proving Ground in rocket research, until he was needed for this special assignment, which he was not told anything about the assignment until he landed in France.
Right, okay.
In the initial orders, and then they briefed him on the 2 things that he was going to be doing: gathering weapons initially, and then being involved in this search for scientists and bringing them back program. Now, it was top secret. The Russians didn't know about it, and the British didn't know about it, because if they did, then they would have blown the whistle on the whole thing.
Right.
We were in no way going to share all these rocket scientists with those 2 countries.
Right. Yes. Right. So, like I said, your father had this kind of series of adventures while he was over there, and one of the ones that I liked the most is they gave him a card, like an ID card, right? And he was a corporal, right?
He was a corporal, but he had orders from Eisenhower in his pocket. Wow.
So, like at one point, some colonel came up to him, wanted his Jeep or something, and this guy said, "I'm sorry, I can't give it to you." And go ahead, tell the story.
It was one of those funny stories amid all this violence and killing and people trying to survive that sometimes happens. On one of his assignments, in fact, they broke up the 20 men that were assigned to this detachment, and they had them going out individually in order to try to bring in more scientists. So that made it even more dangerous. Mm-hmm. But he was sent on a mission to one particular segment. And by the way, Germany was carved up into Russian segments and British and U.S. and France. Right. And so he was on his way, and all the signs were gone, so it was hard, and he had very crude maps. So he stopped at this one army outpost and asked for directions. And when he came out, the colonel and the colonel's captain were standing there eyeing up the jeep that my father had requisitioned. Mm-hmm. And they said, the colonel needs that jeep because his is broken down and it's in a motor pool being repaired. And my father said, you can't have that jeep. And so after getting directions in the outpost, he walked outside and he noticed that there was a captain and a colonel eyeing up his jeep. And the captain told my father that the colonel needed that jeep because his was in the motor pool being repaired. And my father said, you can't have that jeep. And so they went back and forth a couple of times. The colonel saw resistance, so the colonel approached and said, soldier, I want that jeep. And my father said, you can't have that jeep. And the colonel said, you better have a damn good reason, soldier, for not giving me that jeep. So my father pulled out his orders and started to hand them to the colonel. The colonel backed up, and the captain stepped in and took the orders. He looked them over, and he said, sir, yes, sir, he has a good reason. And he showed the orders to the colonel, and the colonel went whoop and walked away.
Because they were signed by
Eisenhower.
Yeah. Wow. Hey, Cobra, you must appreciate that story, man.
It's those rare moments that you can have all that line up and have the letter. And I think the other part that's just amazing about this is, in this day and age, written orders like that wouldn't carry very far. But in World War II, they were worth, their weight in gold. Right. They had that kind of authority because it was a handwritten or hand signature on a typed letter. Mm-hmm. It was pretty amazing.
Well, that's cool. Right. So anyway, now your father, what was interesting, you touched on it before, is that they used to have these guys in groups, okay? They'd send them out as a group to try to find one or two guys, right? But then as things got even more chaotic and they realized, these guys are scattered all over the place, they just sent them out one at a time in Germany at night. And it was over, but still people are shooting each other and all this stuff, okay? But now there's another story where he was coming down the road and there was a convoy stopped at the side of the road, and he had to kind of slow down for it, and he saw someone he knew. Can you tell us that story?
Yes. At this moment in time, they were still paired up. After this incident, they weren't paired up anymore. But my father was paired up with a captain, and he saw a convoy, and my father said to the captain, my brother is over here, and he's I think assigned to that group. And the captain said, well, pull him over. And my father said, I'm a corporal. I can't pull anybody over. So the captain said, pull up there. I'll take care of it. So he pulled up. Captain waved the convoy over. They stopped. And then my father went looking through the convoy and found his brother.
His brother? He meets his brother in the middle of all this. Okay, I know.
Yeah, in the middle of all this. Can you imagine the odds against that?
Really?
And so the captain spoke to the commander of the convoy and kind of kept him distracted while my father was able to visit with his brother for a while.
Wow, that's really cool. And then, so let's move on a little bit. When he got to that village that was kind of cut in half, it was kind of like half it were Russians and half it were, not Russians, and the guy that your father wanted was in the Russian sector. Do I have that right?
That's correct.
Okay. And just tell us that story a little bit and how he met someone he knew.
Yeah, the crazy coincidence. You've got millions of soldiers all over the world, and he did. He was told that there was a scientist in this village in the Russian sector, and the village was divided, and that they needed for him to somehow get that scientist. And arrived he went in to see the commander on the American side, and showed him his orders, and the commander said, whatever you need, no problem. And my father said, well, I've got this German dictionary, but I don't have time for that. I need an interpreter. So the commander asked one of the soldiers to go and bring in the interpreter, and in walks a friend of my father's as the interpreter.
Who can speak Russian?
They had grown up together in Pennsylvania.
Right.
And this interpreter knew German, Polish, Russian, several languages, multilingual. And so, they kind of embraced and slapped each other on the back. And so my father explained what he was doing, and his friend, who was Joe Porcorny, said, yeah, he's here, and he's right up the street here, and there are 2 Russian guards, and they don't have him locked in or anything, but they're supposed to keep their eye on him until a detachment comes from the Russian side to pick them up. So Porcorny said, okay, here's what we're going to do. You're going to pretend that you're just a courier, and so hide your weapons. And my father had a Thompson submachine gun and a .45 in a shoulder holster. Hide your weapons in the Jeep, put your jewelry, anything you've got, put it in the Jeep so they can't see it from down the street.
Mm-hmm.
And so the interpreter, Joe, walked down the street and started talking to the 2 Russian guards, and he brought some schnapps with him.
Yes.
And so they wanted to know who this guy was with the Jeep. And Porcorny said, well, he's just a courier. He brought schnapps for all of us, and we thought we'd bring some to you guys. So they're yucking it up and having fun, and they're drinking all this, and after a little while, they weren't as sharp as they were before.
Mm-hmm. Okay,
and
that
so
happens. Yep.
Joe Porcorny gave my father a signal. My father drove around the village and got behind the building where the scientist was, and Porcorny had told the scientist, when the Jeep pulls up, you run out and get in it. So he did, and my father took off and was able to snatch this guy out of the jaws of the Russians' grip.
Right.
And you can imagine what happened to those 2 Russian soldiers who were supposed to keep their eye on him.
Right. I mean, who would have thought that you could bribe Russians with liquor, I mean,
I know.
Just so out of the blue thinking, out of the box.
Yeah, that never happens.
You're listening to Mack Maloney's Military Exile Show here on the Distant Thunder Radio Network. We're talking to Bob Jamison about a fascinating book he wrote about his father, who was employed by doing secret missions for the OSS, who was the forerunner of the CIA, in a world war in Europe right after World War II ended. He was instrumental in bringing a lot of German scientists over to this country, and at least some of them formed the foundation of NASA and put us on the moon. Now, I know there was one other story in there that I really liked, and it was kind of simple, and it just kind of shows you like the moxie of some of these guys who fought over there. Didn't your father's this Jeep break down or something, and he spent the night like in a bombed-out building or something?
Yes, at this point, the same as with dealing with the Russians. At this point, they were singular. They were on their own, and he was sent out to find another scientist. And while en route, he came to a bombed-out bridge with a pretty deep ravine. And so, like he always said, when you're given orders, you don't turn around. You keep going. So he kind of searched around the area to make sure there were no landmines alongside where the bridge had been blown out. Put the Jeep in 4-wheel drive and went flying down one slope, got to the base of what used to be a river, and sunk up to the axle.
Okay, all right.
And
he tried.
Wasn't able to go forward, wasn't able to go backwards. And at that point, he didn't know whether he was in the Russian sector or not, because it wasn't clearly identified.
All right.
And so he laid his head on the steering wheel and said, God, you need to get me out of this. So just then, he heard the jingle-jangle of chains and farm equipment, and sure enough, up on the other ridge was a German farmer who had a wagon and oxen. And so my father because he had been out for a pretty good while, filled up his musette bag with all kinds of cigarettes and candy and stuff in case he had to bribe somebody.
Yes.
And sure enough, he climbed the hill and asked the farmer to bring 2 oxen down and pull the Jeep out, and the farmer said, "No, I'm just going to bring one." And they were using hand sign language because they couldn't communicate. So he brought one ox down and couldn't pull the Jeep out. So he went back up the hill and brought the other one down and pulled the Jeep out. And my father rewarded him with cigarettes and candy, and then he went on his way to complete his mission.
I mean,
at any point
if
in
something
time,
happened now, if that happened today, the heat call back, they'd have to send a truck. Well, just the determination back then, I think, was interesting.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And determination, in spite of the fact that there probably were still Nazi snipers out there who never got the word, and the Russians who always shoot and ask questions later.
Right, sure.
Well, you also had the whole wolf dog campaign, the werewolf, that was going on at that time, where you had Nazis that were not going to be picked up, that were fighting. So they were hunting for anybody that they could take down.
Right. Can you tell us, Bob, what kind of a guy was your father? I've talked to Mike a little bit, and he said he was just a very kind of guy who didn't say much, didn't talk about all these experiences very much. He was just a real kind of centered individual, right?
Yeah. My father was a unassuming, stoic kind of guy that didn't say much. If you asked him, he would certainly hold a conversation with you, but he generally listened more than he talked. And people enjoyed his company because they could talk to him. He would listen. He didn't dominate the conversation.
Right.
But he was also, at the very same time, the go-to guy. If you wanted something done, he was the guy to go to.
Right. Okay.
He would get it done, no matter what it was.
Right.
Now, he never spoke. See, in his exit interview out of the military, he was told that he could not disclose any of this for 50 years. And in fact, just for a margin of error, I guess, he did not disclose anything for 60 years.
Wow.
Until he was at the point where I was talking to him about the biography, and he began little by little disclosing some of the details of this. Plus, he had a pretty exciting career after the military.
Well, that's what I was going to. I was going to ask you about that. What wrapped up the book for me was, and again, I'll try to thumbnail in. He went back to work at Aberdeen, and he was working on different weapons and so on. Okay, and then one day in late 1963, 2 guys walk in, FBI guys, and they have a rifle handcuffed to one of them.
What year was this?
63, and they had Bob's father look at it, and whatever they said, who knows, turned around and walked out, and there's a pretty good chance that what it was Lee Harvey Oswald's rifle, and they went to him for some kind of an expert opinion. Is that kind of on the mark?
Yes, that's exactly right. In fact, the interesting thing was they came to, these 2 FBI special agents came to the division head, and the division head said, "You need to go to the branch head." They went to the branch head, and the branch head said, "No, you need to see Jim." So
okay.
Here again, kind of at the corporal level or supervisory level, he was the go-to guy.
Right.
And he performed the ballistics tests on that rifle.
Isn't that amazing?
Yeah.
Well, he sounds like he was quite a guy, and I know it must have been a labor of love to write the book, World War II Soldiers and Scientists, Jim Jamison's Mission. So, can people buy this or...
Well, to be honest, I wrote it for the family, just for us to have, and I had it bound so that it would be better for posterity.
Sure.
And I've written a couple of others too that I never really intended to sell. I've been encouraged to maybe put these kinds of things on the internet, eBay or something, but I haven't really gotten to that point.
Well, when you do, call us back and we'll pump it for you, okay, as they say?
I sure do appreciate that.
All right. Well, thanks. It's a really fascinating story, and I'll tell you, if he had met a Fraulein and married her over there, you'd have a movie. You know what I mean? It's you really would. You know, the right person. I see Brad Pitt playing him. Maybe
he was always at the right place at the right
yeah,
time.
Yeah. The
coincidences, connecting the dots.
What are the chances? Right? You're going to run into a guy you know, and he speaks Russian, and you need someone to speak Russian at that moment.
The guy was truly blessed.
Yeah. Well, hey, listen, thanks for joining us, and we'll talk to you soon, and hopefully you'll have nice weather this winter down there in Florida.
I sure hope so, and we feel like we were blessed to be part of his family.
Yeah, your son Mike has told me a lot about him. He's a really interesting guy. So thanks for sharing the story with us, and we'll talk to you soon, okay?
Thank you very much. Pleasant talking to you guys.
Great story. Thanks,
well, I'm
Bob.
Jamison. Yeah. As far as a real hero, man, back in World War II, and just and led the James Bond life without being, James Bond.
I like all the pictures in the back of that book.
Yeah, I know. Very cool. So why don't we take a commercial break now, and we'll be back with the next segment of the show. You're listening to Mack Maloney's Military Style Show here on the Distant Thunder Radio Network. We'll be right back after this. Welcome back, everyone, to Mack Maloney's Military Style Show here on the Distant Thunder Radio Network. This is Mack Maloney in the studio with us tonight, 3 weeks in a row. Not yet a streak, but he is here working on a streak, if not a streaking. Very famous Juan-Juan is here.
Brady's still ahead of me in terms of streaks.
There you go. Okay. All right. I listened to last week's show this morning, and you really have a real gaga situation with Tom Brady. I didn't realize how severe it was until I listened to 2 segments of last week's show.
And I really think in his honor, especially from his recent performances, I need to upgrade my Tom Brady attire and be more,
more
up-tempo.
Yes, up-tempo would be the word. Yep. Fabulous might be another word. You never know, depending on what color scheme.
You look marvelous.
Yes, okay. All right.
I want to come out with my TB12 stuff and all my Tom Brady, maybe some photos.
Really?
Like a photo collage. I'm going to hang it right up here in the studio.
I thought you were not in the studio, my friend, but you have that in your bedroom. So, in your bunkhouse.
I'm going to take it from my bedroom.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow. Somewhere there's a saint in waiting, and it's Mrs. Juan-Juan.
That's right.
What's up with... Anyway.
He is so cool.
Yeah. So, anyway, well, listen, you'd have all this Patriots talk on the line is someone from New York City, so you're really driving a knife in.
A little bit.
It's our friend Carmen Sclafani from New York City, from the band Wise the Time. How you doing there tonight, Carmen?
Good, guys. How are you doing?
Doing good.
Excellent.
Okay. Did I pronounce your last name right?
Sclafani, yeah.
Sclafani, Juan-Juan.
Sclafani.
I'll tell you, if anyone told me the name was Sclafani, I'd say, yes, sir. And I'll be going, if you let me.
A good Irish name, right?
Yes, right.
I mean, just saying his name is like opera.
There you go. You know what? Well, next time anyone gives us any trouble, we'll just say, we know Carmen Sclafani from New York City.
We know a guy in New York City who's going to take care of it
and
for you.
And you don't want him to know you.
Right, that's exactly right. Yeah, but we'll have him call you up if you want. You might want to have a conversation.
You don't want to be found in pieces under the underpass.
Wow, that's
right. I got a couple of secret stashes out there.
There you go, see? All right.
On the weeds of New Jersey.
Very good, yeah. Not racist at all there, Juan-Juan. It's okay.
and we tolerated it back in the day.
What do you mean we? You're Filipino.
Well, deep down inside, I've been Italian since day one.
Really? Wow.
Well,
okay. It's another show.
Well, we were getting into it a little bit. You have a little bit in you.
There's
certainly some floating around.
Yeah, that's what she said. Hang on.
I mean, when you have an uncle named Guido, and I do have an uncle named Vinny.
Wow.
And 2 aunts.
Yes.
That play the accordion.
Wow, you are Italian.
So that nails it right there.
You are a gumbo there, my friend.
That definitely gives you some more points.
Their swan song was like Lady of Spain or something.
Really? Yeah. Okay. All right. Yeah. Hate to say it, but that's 100% meatball then. Anyway, okay.
Every day was Prince Spaghetti Day in my house.
Hey, listen, a good friend of mine in Dorchester, I've known him for years. He grew up in the original Prince Spaghetti house.
No kidding, really?
Yeah. Yep, they moved it from Savin Hill to Dorchester. That's really inside stuff. Anyway, hey, Carmen, so what's new with you and the band? What's going on?
Well, we just put out a new record, so I'm excited about that.
Mm-hmm.
And, getting ready to just getting put out there right now. So just lining up some shows and getting ready to, have hopefully a good new year.
Good.
And doing some shows and getting out there and talking about it.
So you're taking it out on the road?
Yeah, there's a record company.
A little bit, I mean, always, we'll see what opportunities come out, which will kind of dictate,
right.
How long the runs will be. But I'll definitely be doing a lot of shows locally in my tri-state area, and we'll see what the new year brings us.
Have you played at BB King's, or have you been inside there?
I have, in fact. Ironically enough, I played BB's about 2 months ago. I did a show down there, and a solo thing.
That's a nice, but it's a nice venue, as they say, right? BB King's.
Oh yeah, it's a great place. The sound system there is great. They do it well. They take care of you. They really it's great, great venue, and right in the heart of Times Square in New York City, which can be a fun people watching experience.
Oh, to say the least. Did you ever meet BB himself?
I have not actually. I have not met him. That would have been something to have. I had a couple of New York legends that kind of have their namesake. Les Paul, who used to play at the Iridium all the time in New York City as well. I had the pleasure of meeting him, and so those are two of my old school blues guitar guys.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Les Paul was awesome.
Les Paul's awesome. Yeah, I mean, just stuff he did, just is just for the instrument itself. You know what I mean? He's like the Stradivarius.
Just as an inventor, it was just incredible.
Yeah.
And it was something I was glad really early on. I'd seen him when I was really young, and he was playing at a different place called Fat Tuesdays at the time before he went to the Iridium, and he was just to see the joy that he brought when he played. He had such a great time, and it was just so great to see, even now as I've become an older musician, to just see that joy of the way he just performed. It really was a great experience. It's something that I tried to take in from early on, and and lock into myself.
Right.
The guy was in one with the instrument at all times.
Right.
It seemed like.
And he was the first one to stack. I think he was the first one to stack recorders and edit them all down together. If I'm thinking of the right guy.
It really was multi-tracking. Right. Yeah, it was incredible. Incredible inventor, and obviously, like you said earlier, what he did for the instrument, itself is incredible. And it's my favorite guitar too, a Les Paul. So.
Yeah, a lot of people. So what else? What other rock stars have you run into that you can tell us about?
Oh my God!
I'll make it up.
There's been quite a number. I will say. Let me think here. What might be fun? I had the pleasure of sitting down, if you know some of the guys from the band Cactus, like Carmine Appice and Jimmy McCarty and whatnot. And I'm friends with Jimmy Coons, the singer of the band. And we were out in Detroit at the Magic Hat. What is it? Magic Hat, I think the venue is called.
Okay.
And we were having dinner out there, and Carmine was telling me his Zeppelin story with the shark.
Oh yeah,
you remember that story? So he told
me
firsthand about that rock and roll
lifestyle.
lore. So that was a pretty interesting one.
Right.
I'll have to hear that story. I've not heard it.
We cannot tell that story on the radio.
Okay. Maybe, was that when he was with Vanilla Fudge?
It's not paranormal. It's a little abnormal, but
but that was probably when
interesting.
Carmen Appice was with Vanilla Fudge probably at the time, right?
Yeah. Well, he was he was still playing with Cactus, doing with Jimmy, not with Rusty, but he's still doing. Carmine does all sorts of. He still does Fudge, Cactus. He's always jamming, sitting in at the Beacon.
With Jeff Beck on one of his albums.
Yeah, incredible.
Truth. That was. I think he was on that one. That was a great record.
Wow, excellent. So, the reason we called you and wanted you on the air is that we've taken 3 of your songs from the CD and we used them as bumpers, right?
Have you paid the guy for that?
Excuse me, Juan-Juan.
Come on.
Okay,
you can just take his stuff and use it as bumpers.
8 minutes and 10 seconds. Jeff, please edit that out. Anyway, so we've used some of your songs as bumpers, and the thing is that we can't hear them now.
You're going to be famous just by this alone.
Just by the bumpers. Okay, so.
I'll take it wherever I can get it, man.
Right.
People are going to be putting their Shazam
mode. Yes.
App in front of the speaker when the bumpers are playing, and it's not going to come up with anything. Because
let me ask you something real quick, completely off the subject, both of you.
Mm-hmm.
Have either of you guys heard of the Mandela effect? Do you know what the Mandela effect is?
No.
Okay.
I do not.
It's funny because you said Shazam, right? There's this thing going around where people are misremembering or they're remembering a different thing than other people are.
I get it. Yeah.
Like when Mandela died in 2010, people said, wait a minute, I sat home and watched Mandela's funeral on the air live, and they tell the story from beginning to end, and it's this, and someone in North Dakota had it, and this
Different versions of it.
Different versions of it.
Totally different.
And they can't figure out why these people are not remembering or what they saw was different from us or whatever. But anyway, the question they ask a lot of people is, did you ever see the movie Shazam? Shazam. Do you remember the movie Shazam?
No, I don't.
Okay. Do you, Carmen?
I don't know.
Okay. Like 50% of people say, yeah, I saw the movie, and it was with Sinbad, the comedian there.
Yeah, he's funny.
Even Lois Lane said it. She said, yeah, I remember that. It was Sinbad. And I said, and what was it? He was a genie. Never made a movie, but people remember it. It's strange. Anyway, so.
Wow.
Shazam.
I don't really remember too much about Sin. I mean, some of his outside of he was a comedian, but I don't think I've ever seen a film by him.
Allegedly a comedian. Let's put it that way.
We go down a lot of roads. See that road we just went down, Carmen?
Hang on. You see?
It was amazing, wasn't it?
Right there. We made a left.
It's like being in Italy for crying out loud.
There you go. Well, they drive on the other side of the road. So anyway, so just tell us a little bit about what the music on the album. It's hard to kind of define because we use the beginning of 3 of your songs as the bumpers, and they sound weird and almost kind of
prog rock?
Not prog rock, just kind of strange, something kind of not Western. I don't know how to describe it. A little bit of New Orleans, kind of. I don't know what it is. So just tell us a little bit about like "My Way Home," "Find My Way Home." What's with that song?
Yeah. Okay. Well, I guess with this record, there's definitely. I still make albums,
yes.
And this being my 4th full-length album.
Yes.
Depending which record you listen to, you might even think it's a different band. Right. I mean, you hear it's definitely in the same, it's in the same kitchen, but depending which record you have and what was going on in my life at the time, kind of dictated how I produced the record. So the last record, full one anyways, that I did, Beggars and Thieves, was very much a road record, and I was playing so much, kind of traveling everywhere out of my truck and doing a lot of acoustic stuff and really, influenced by the sounds of America. And now this record, and going back on point to your question, if you follow my whole Wiser Time work, there really has been a theme over these last kind of 10 years that I've been, or even more so, I've been doing it for 17 years, but recording for about 10.
I can guess what the theme is, Juan-Juan. Do you want to guess what the theme of this is?
Of his album that he's coming out with?
Of a musician, 17 years as a musician. The theme of his life story would be...
17 years.
Yeah, why does anyone get in a rock and roll band?
Well, I think when you start doing it, when you're young, it's fun. There's a lot of things going on. There's so many reasons. One might want to do it to get girls. Others may want to do it for just an outlet. For me, I think it was just an artistic outlet. I was always writing. I mean, I have notebooks. Anytime I need to work something out, I typically do it on paper.
He's a real musician.
Do you wake up in the middle of the night and find your tape recorder advanced all the way and there's a riff there?
I do it all the time. In fact, the witching hour is really my best time because no one's bothering you. You kind of, everything's dark and... I don't know. It kind of gets you into me, anyways, in a certain kind of mood.
Yeah, you're not distracted by other stuff.
Now, is it the same band for every album, or do you change around the band mates?
It's been different. I mean, really, this has kind of been my thing. I do all the writing, and depending really where my, where it takes me, I've really allowed this. It started off me being more like a folk musician. Playing in the coffee houses in New York City, singing about the war and stuff like that when things were going on. And it's progressed to so many different levels. So, and at the time, it started off, it was more of a studio thing. And then as you start playing out more and you start doing things and people kind of latch on to what you're doing, it's just kind of natural. Certain cats kind of come in and tell you, listen, I just want to play with you kind of thing and, be a part of it. Yep. And so it's had different times when it's been a band and when it's been more of a studio thing. And there's been recurring guys like Rob Flores, my friend, great piano player, and he's been on every record, just about every recording I've ever done. He's been on something. So there's always a familiar group
Yes.
And just depending on, where I'm at a particular time kind of dictates who's kind of playing on it. And,
okay. Right. So in the minute we have left, can I ask one more question?
Certainly.
Okay. What do you call a guy who hangs around with musicians?
What do you call a guy who hangs out with musicians? A dealer?
I don't know. Yeah, exactly. Juan-Juan, you know the answer?
Yes, I do.
What is it?
The drummer.
The drummer.
A drummer. So are you a drummer, Juan-Juan?
No, I'm not. I wish I was.
Snap. Oh,
I am.
Wow.
I played guitar for a little while back in the 60s, right back when everybody was playing.
It's a little bit of an insult, isn't it? Juan-Juan?
What?
He asked if you were a drummer.
I know.
Anyway.
And I'm trying to learn how to play a piano. I have a Yamaha grand piano in the house, and I don't know how to play it.
Really? Yeah. Well,
My girls do, but I don't. I mean, I've putzed around with it.
So listen, hey, Carmen, do you ever come up to Boston to do shows?
I have been in the past. It's been a while since I've been up there, but we'll see where the next where this record takes us, and
come on in the studio.
We'll be able to get up there.
Yeah, come on in the studio and do a show with us or sit down. So it's a Carmen Sclafani, okay, and this has nothing to do with his Uncle Vito calling us early this morning. We like his music, and it was really good to talk to him.
Say that last name again,
okay,
Carmen,
Sclafani.
It's a Sclafani, but with the Boston accent, you're hitting it right on the head.
Okay,
it's Sclafani.
Okay. So Wise of Time is the name of the band, and look them up on Amazon.com. Carmen, thanks for joining us, and we're going to use your music as bumpers for the next 6 months anyway. So.
Oh well,
so
thanks
the check's
for
in the mail,
guys.
right?
I appreciate it. And I'll be sending you some records in the mail as well.
Cool.
Okay.
Okay, great. All right.
All right, thanks, guys. Have a great one.
Okay.
Thank you, Carmen.
Bye.
It's Carmen Sclafani from.
Notice he said records.
Records, yeah, I like that.
Vinyl
band
is making a big comeback with.
Oh, we were in it. I was going to tell you, we were in a Barnes and Noble the other day.
They've expanded their record collection.
Huge vinyl section. Yeah.
Plus, it creeps out into the book section.
Yeah. And there was a story in Forbes today too that said that vinyl's coming back in such a big way. Mostly, one of the reasons they put out Sgt. Pepper on vinyl. And a couple of Rolling Stones albums, that blues album. Yep. And now the millennials are finding that, they really like vinyl. And then the people who missed vinyl are now coming back.
That's right.
So
turntable sales are skyrocketing.
Yeah.
High-end turntable sales, too.
And the technology is cool. And, it's funny. It didn't go away.
You can be at one with the music when you're playing it.
Yeah, I love vinyl, man. But, it gets scratched. Anyway, so that was very interesting. It was our musical segment of the show. So why don't we take a commercial break now? And we'll be right back after this. You're listening to Mack Maloney's Military Exile Show here on the Distant Thunder Radio Network. Stay with us. Welcome back to Mack Maloney's Military Exile Show here on the Distant Thunder Radio Network. This is Mack Maloney. We're in the middle of a fascinating shoe, but let me introduce all the people who have suddenly come down upon us. First of all, he's been here since the beginning. The very famous Juan-Juan is here.
That's right. Since the beginning of the show and almost since the beginning of time.
You're sitting tonight in a smaller chair. Usually you're above us all.
Yeah, I'm resting my posterior right now.
Okay, all right.
My gluteus maximus needs to be minimus for a few minutes.
If you say so. They've cream for that,
There is.
Just remember that. Coco is with us, Captain Cobra.
So, good evening, gentlemen.
Good evening. We're having a
love
good time.
it when you class it up with a little Latin. That's always
with gluteus maximus. You bet.
Always
and creaming it, apparently. It's Max Pig Latin.
We had the Roman numerals class earlier.
Right.
Yes.
You missed that. There we go. Also on the line with us, calling in from Battle Creek, Michigan, where they make all the cereals. Juan-Juan. Think how many tons of breakfast cereal you've eaten just yourself.
Wow. Could you imagine if there was an explosion in the building with flakes flying?
You said that last week. Is that a dream you had?
I was equating it to the Molasses flood in Boston.
Yeah, right. And I was thinking
and that was really a sticky wicket, wasn't it?
Well, if you can't escape molasses.
My grandfather actually was alive when that happened.
Is that right? Wow, what a mess.
What was it, like 40 people maybe or so?
Yeah, and horses and oh my God.
In the north end.
Amazing.
You can still, they say when it's hot, you can still smell it, coming off the sidewalk. But
I think the Big Dig took care of that.
If you,
I think you smell something different now.
If you can't run away from a wave of molasses, you're slow.
You're pretty slow.
Anyway.
Well, yeah.
So anyway, let's
people by surprise. I said, "Is that molasses?"
It's like the
Hold
blob.
on a second.
It's like the blob.
Hey,
Once
Ma,
I get hold of you,
Give me the butter knife, will you?
It's like, Wow. Regressing to maybe another life.
Hollering out the window. You know how you talk to your mother out the window.
Especially down there. Well, it was Irish then, but now, it's not Irish
Sometimes
anymore.
there was a gun appearing at the window.
The North End. There you go. See, racial stereotypes.
January 15th.
Sorry
January
about that.
15th, 1919, if you care.
Okay. So anyway, let's hope that nothing like that happens in Boston
and the
again.
Molasses was rushing through the streets at an estimated 5 miles per hour.
Yeah.
So I just want to make sure we get that all clear.
At what speed?
Estimated 35 miles an hour. I don't think so.
No.
3.8.
But it was a
maybe.
big vat, like a huge.
It killed 21. It injured 150.
Okay. All right. You're going to argue with Coco?
It was almost like the Boston equivalent of Mount Vesuvius.
There we go.
Blowing
So
up.
listen,
And
let's
people
hope.
frozen in time going.
Well, that was until at least the brothers.
Like the Pink Floyd movie. You know.
Well, I was thinking until the marathon. So.
Okay. All right. So why don't we do this?
Did we introduce Emily yet?
No, not yet. And then
Well, let's get to it.
We're going to salute Cobra, but
I got
now
something to say
the
about
time.
Emily.
Anyway, also with us. So we're saying switch. Hopefully, nothing like that happens up in Battle Creek. Okay. No explosions, no volcanoes, no molasses.
Well, if there's any floods, we'll try and keep the Quaker puffed wheat out of there. I mean, you know.
Oh yeah.
That would
Yeah.
soak up in.
That went over my head.
Quaker puffed wheat and puffed rice. You remember that stuff?
Okay, yeah,
that's right.
okay.
And if
like eating air.
If it sat in a bowl of milk, like you forgot about it, and you were watching, Captain Kangaroo,
Yep.
It would like expand, and
Right.
it could almost be like the monster that devoured Cleveland.
Right.
I mean, that
Put a lot of sugar on it, though.
Oh yeah.
Okay. So anyway, how are you tonight, Switch?
I'm doing really good because I've taken the first steps toward retirement.
What?
Oh, well, don't bum us out.
Wait, that is retiring from real work. I'm not actually going to retire.
Okay.
Not going to, just sit on my tuchus.
Oh,
It sounds like
okay.
he's getting
another
royalties for
Latin
his
word.
Mothman work. That's allowing him to
He's really good,
transition to a new phase of his life.
Okay.
That's right.
All right. It sounds exciting.
Well, good for you, Steve.
Right. Yes.
Congratulations, sir.
Thanks.
Congratulations.
Got a few more steps to go, but we're working on it.
Okay. Super. So what are you doing? You're leaving your job? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, probably by about April, everything will kick in,
Okay.
and I'll be retired.
Okay. Retired.
Which
Okay.
sounds really funny to say out loud.
Yeah.
Well, no, you'll be self-employed doing something. So.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Hey, it'll be fun, right? It's
It
supposed
will
to
be. Yeah.
Do you golf?
I mean, I'll never be bored.
No, do you golf?
No,
No. Okay. All right.
that would be boring.
It-
Sorry, all you golfers.
it's a nice walk in the park, really. When you think
That's
you just
true.
hit the
That's
ball every
absolutely
once in a while.
Golfing
That's all.
doesn't appear to me appeal to me at all.
Not without a cart. No way I would walk it. No way. I'd need a cart and a little.
Well, that's
cooler.
where the exercise part comes in.
Yeah, and that ship sailed.
Okay. All right.
Anyway, also joining us from Cincinnati, I'm assuming, is Emily Mittermeier. Emily M.
Hello.
Hey.
How are you doing tonight?
I'm doing very well.
Good.
Okay.
How about those Bengals?
Yeah, just
I don't follow them, so I don't
good.
know.
Yeah,
Good
good.
for you.
Just repeat.
You'd
just
be vomiting right now on
read
the
the
air.
court
Yeah.
report tomorrow. There's probably about 5 or 6 of
Yeah,
them.
you'll see half the
I
team
follow
on the
Colts.
lineup.
That's bad enough.
Oh, boy.
Wow. So anyway, tonight we've been talking off and on about the Nazis, Germany, Hitler, just how some things, they did some crazy things, but fate or whatever pushed them in the right direction for a while. The stuff happened to them that they were lucky. They were really lucky.
Yeah,
It's
right.
almost I hate to say it, but almost like it was meant to be, or whatever. But so Emily, tell us what's your Nazi story tonight?
Ooh, I have lots of Nazi stories. This is actually one of my favorite, probably my favorite conspiracy theory is about Hitler's death and if it actually happened the way that we've been told.
Okay. All right, Cobra brought this up earlier. Did he live after World War II? Is that what we're saying? He made the Great Escape?
It's a good possibility.
Mm-hmm.
I would say. I just think that the way that we are told that he died, which was by killing himself and in his bunker, in researching it, there really is no proof that happened. It definitely could have.
Mm-hmm. Right.
But there's
and
no
the so-called proof, you would agree, probably doesn't stand any kind of scrutiny when you.
Right. I mean, there's lots of eyewitness accounts, but from his own people saying,
Right.
yes, he killed himself and Eva Braun did too. And then we burned them and their bodies are unrecognizable. But here they are, in a bomb crater.
And
right? I mean, they would be the ones to say that so that he could get away.
Mm-hmm. I mean, and the bones are wrong, right? Hadn't someone determined that the bones are not correct or something?
Right. And the whole path that his remains follow from when the Russians found these remains and thought it was Hitler and Eva Braun, and they took them. And even what happened in the short term after they found the bodies seems to have conflicting accounts. I've seen that they took the bodies, they buried them elsewhere in Germany, came back later, exhumed the bodies, took them back to Russia, had some of the body parts like Hitler's skull in the archives, until the mid 2009 is when the DNA testing was done.
Mm-hmm.
But then there's other reports that says no, the bodies were burned completely in the 70s and ashes scattered, so there were no remains. So the fact that we can't even trace what happened to his body, and what we can trace, the Russians said, yes, this is Hitler's skull. They did the tests on it in 2009 and it came back that it was the skull of a 40-year-old woman. So clearly not him either.
Okay.
So I feel like we don't know what happened.
Or Hitler was a woman.
Or that too.
Oh, that too. Wow. Well, but let me ask this, Cobra, maybe you would know this. Was there some special unit that would be in charge of getting him out of the country?
Well, it appears that his most stalwart supporters, the ideologues that we know capital I, and the use of body doubles, which is very popular through many leaders of that time, and it appears still continues to this day. Saddam Hussein had a number of them. They set this all up and worked it so that he could depart. And the suicide that occurred, the most popular going conspiracy now is that the suicide that occurred was the body doubles that performed it, and they did it as their final service to the Third Reich.
Wow. So
there's two folks that have worked out if it was physically possible to be flown to a location, to get on to a ship, to meet a U-boat, and recently quite a bit of U-boat, I believe it's 944 and 977. It has shown up, its records have shown up, and parts and pieces have shown up in Argentina. So it makes it that there is at least a logical pathway that he could have done it.
Right. I have to interrupt the show with a bulletin. Bob the Ghost has made his appearance for the night. He has flicked the light off and on above Juan-Juan's head.
Which must have meant he concurred with what Cobra's been saying about the submarines and the...
Hitler went to Argentina and stuff.
Argentina.
So he would know.
Now, here's an interesting question.
The Blue Meanie was going to go to Argentina, too.
Excuse me, that I have for Emily.
Okay, go ahead, please.
Why do you think he was so quiet in Argentina?
Right.
Or do you think he just went into a different form of control?
Well, it would have been smart for him to keep his mouth shut, for one thing. But go ahead, please, Emily.
Right. No. I think this is where I am conflicted with myself, because I feel like he wanted to escape because he wanted to come back into power eventually, because he was a egomaniacal psychopath that probably thought he was doing the right thing. And so to me, it seems like he would escape and then try to start something up again. And so I think maybe the reason why he was quiet, if he did escape and that we didn't really hear from him, is because he either realized that that was the smart thing to do. Otherwise, he's going to have a lot of people coming after him, or he was, quietly plotting his return and died before it happened.
Now, let me suppose one more piece to that. Do you think with the high number of Nazis that came to the United States after World War II, that he was able to transition to a different way of doing that? That he didn't have to, I don't think his personal makeup makes it appear to someone that he could easily be pulling the levers from behind. Doesn't appear to be that type of person, but do you think that that's what it was?
Yeah, that could be. That doesn't seem as grand as I feel like a guy like him would want it to be, but definitely, yeah, just kind of covertly inserting these horrible people into other countries to bring their ideologies there and, you know, make it something.
It worked out in South America.
The United States.
You know?
Yeah.
But the thing would be is, if he was down there, wouldn't that mean that there, and I always say this, wouldn't that mean there'd be, you know, a fairly large circle of people who would know he was down there if he was not laying low?
Some of his henchmen were down there anyway, right?
Yeah, I know, but, you know, they caught them, the Israelis caught them and so on. No one ever said anything, you know, he's hiding up in the woods somewhere. I wouldn't put it past them to try it. There was, at one point, I know there was some female pilot, Cobra, who he really trusted, and she was, like, landing in the bombed-out streets of Berlin and stuff, you know, so he could have got out of Berlin by an airplane. You know, we go from there. Sure. The subs, you know, they had long range subs. Some of them weren't as long range as they thought, and so on. But hey, Switch, what are you going to bring us?
Okay, I know Emily's got more, but I was going to get into some of the really weird stuff. Okay. And this, you know, there's all this rumor and stuff about Nazi flying saucers. Yes. And the wealth of material on this is incredible. Yep. And it's something that probably really doesn't have too much substance to it. And just let me know when you want to get back to Emily here.
Okay,
sure. Maria Orsic, she was born in 1895 in Vienna, a gifted psychic. She's one of these that they called the Vril, V-R-I-L. I don't know if you've seen pictures of them. There was a group of psychic women back in the 1930s.
This is Juan-Juan's area, because one of his first dates with his lovely wife was to a seance, right?
That's right. And her mother did automatic writing.
Yeah.
Oh, well, that's right. Right in what was going on here. She
what a handy thing in a mother-in-law.
I know it. It's perfect. It's perfect.
That's just the beginning, though. You got to hear the whole story. So anyway, go ahead, Switch, please.
But as early as 1917, she was channeling these entities from Aldebaran star system, not Alderaan like we see in Star Wars. Okay. It started in, it picked up speed in 1924 at the request of Rudolf Hess. Okay. They made an attempt through a seance to contact the master occultist Meister Eckhart. I don't know if you guys are familiar. Okay. Back 1260, 1328, Holy Roman Empire. Okay.
All right. So in Rudolf Hess, we should say Rudolf Hess was like number 3 in the Nazi party. He was 3 or 4
big
down.
Guy.
But big guy, yeah. In the Nazi party.
This Meister Eckhart begins to speak through Maria. And then then Eckhart turns it over to these beings. Okay. And so over a long period of time, she and this group of women are contacting these beings. And they were called the Sumi, S-U-M-I, and supposedly had visited the earth in the past, had established Sumeria, you know, so they were pretty busy, I guess. Yep. And the thing that comes out of this, the Vril, this V-R-I-L, I don't know if I'm even pronouncing it correctly, this life force, it's very much like the Force in Star Wars, or this energy, this undefinable energy people are always talking about in various mystical belief systems. But that came from a book called The Coming Race by Edward Lytton. And this was a fictional book, story about an underground race, a utopian race. About 1871, he wrote this, and they practiced. They talked a lot about this force and their utopian situation and how it was used in healing and so forth. Well, this Vril, this was actually co-opted years later, and a lot of people seem to believe that this wasn't a complete work of fiction. And we're talking about people like Madame Blavatsky, that founded the Theosophy movement, Rudolf Steiner, who founded the Anthroposophy movement, excuse me. And so, but they were the ones, I don't know if you have seen these illustrations, but they were channeling all these pictures illustrations of flying saucers that looked suspiciously like the George Adamski saucer.
Oh, wow.
You know, many years later, it's almost a spinning image. You got the bell-shaped craft, you got the ball landing gear and so forth, the portholes. But now, Adamski, make no mistake, Adamski was a fraud. That's another story.
Right. Yeah.
But that's how this name came about more into the present day. Now, according to Joseph Farrell, and I'm not doing him justice because he has written volumes. I don't know if Emily has read some of his stuff as well, but he's written volumes on this stuff. And he says that a lot of this is nonsense because there's a historical gap between the end of World War II and where some of these documents show up that are purportedly documents that show that the Nazis built the plans for these flying saucers that were channeled by these women.
Right.
So nothing is actually can be traced back to World War II, but about early 1950s, suspiciously, this stuff turns up. But then we get to the Nazi bell.
Yes.
Joseph Farrell thinks that the Nazi bell, and this is kind of a acorn-like device with two interior cylinders rotating opposite, supposedly somehow creating anti-gravity.
It's located in Poland, Western Poland, I think.
Yes, exactly.
It's a big bell, a chestnut. Like a chestnut, huge.
Right.
And they think that it was creating. Go ahead, please.
Right, exactly. But when I was looking at some of this, and again, there's so much on this, it's hard to find it all. There was a gentleman named Igor Witowski claimed that he got information from a Polish source, Polish intelligence, like you were saying, and it was supposedly originated with another major Nazi officer, Jacob Sporenberg. But the problem is that when he got this Polish intelligence, he said, well, he wasn't able to transcribe any of it or make any copies. So he's the only person, that had seen this. And it was all about supposedly the plans for this Nazi bell, which seems to be a little dubious. But then if we move ahead a little bit forward, we look at the Kecksburg craft, the Acorn craft that crashed in 1967. No, 65.
Okay.
December 65. And when you see illustrations of the Kecksburg Acorn, if you will, and the Nazi bell, very, very similar in what people reported. Of course, nobody got real close to it, I guess, that could really examine it because they allegedly they whisked this thing away.
Right.
But as I recall, Stan Gordon, when he talks about, he's the one that really was on the ground floor of this. Stan Gordon, the great researcher from Pennsylvania.
We got to get him on the show. The Kecksburg story is fascinating on about 20 levels. Some of it you won't believe.
Especially because when it came in, actually my wife saw this thing streak across the sky in Michigan back when it happened. I missed it, unfortunately. But this thing apparently, according to Stan, at the last minute, it kind of did some maneuvers, something that a meteor or even some kind of a projectile that had been shot would never do.
Right, yeah.
So,
and lots of people saw it. They saw it turn on an angle, switch directions, and, asteroids, meteorites coming into the atmosphere don't usually do that. So, Emily, what else... if you don't mind me just jumping ahead to Emily there, Switch.
Go ahead. Yeah, definitely.
Tell us, what else have you researched? Told you.
Sure. So I think one of the most interesting things I found, and so I'd always heard the story about Argentina, or the theory about Argentina, and that's where he escaped to. And to me, that seems the most plausible, and we can come back to that. But one that I hadn't heard before was that he escaped to Spain with the help of General Franco, and apparently died there. I mean, according to the theory, died there a couple years after the fact, after he got to Spain. And I think it was Franco's driver that had gone and picked Hitler up from the bunker and took him to the airport, or picked him up from the airport in Spain. I don't remember which, but that was interesting. There's another one that he had escaped to Brazil to be a treasure hunter, because he was given a map by friends of his at the Vatican.
Wow.
I love
that one. What a movie that would make. Oh,
I know. And that one, he was supposed to have lived there until the early 80s.
See, I'll tell you, that to me is more plausible, that he went to Spain, short a distance. He was basically, in league with the Spanish fascists, right? Franco. Helped them win the Civil War. So he needed a favor back, and I could see him just, living in some veranda there. No one knows, and he just lived out his life and said, well, keep it below the radar, because you don't want anyone to know I'm here. And it's a little more plausible than Argentina on a sub.
Yeah, the thing about Argentina, though, is that, current day Nazi hunters, researchers, whatever you want to call them, have found, they're able to trace information that came out in those CIA documents that were released a while back. Not that there's anything in there that outright says, oh, he escaped, but there's enough in there. The fact that they were still investigating the possibility of him being alive years after he was supposed to be dead. And the fact that so many of the reports were in Argentina, and, people in the last few years have been able to track down some of these places. The people speak to, relatives of these people who have corroborated these stories that he was there. They found the, potential buildings that he had stayed in, out in the middle of nowhere where, you're surrounded by water. Nobody could sneak up on you. And they found the remains of these structures. So to me, that seems pretty reasonable.
Another thing, too, when you just think of his personality, I remember reading once, someone said they determined that he didn't have any kind of mental disease. Okay. He was a normal human being when it came to that. All right. But he just had there was something in him where he could say anything and people would believe him. And he knew that right away. And it was almost like an actor in a way, and he was, I hate to say it, but he was a smart guy on certain levels, let's say. Yeah. I think he'd be smart enough to keep his mouth shut. If he got out of World War II, I think he'd be smart enough to keep his mouth shut and not like start a new movement and any of that stuff. Just go under the radar.
Well, how about this one, Mac? There are people saying that this went exactly the way he wanted it to go.
Okay.
That the outcome
of the war,
and how it went was part of his plan, or it was an acceptable conclusion to what he did because it was just one more step along the way.
Oh, what's the next step? You mean something will rise up in another 1,000 years, and that'll be? Is that what you mean?
Well, the infiltration to the United States, the defeat of Europe uniting, which is what his goal was. His version of, many people say the EU has the complete blueprint of what the Nazis wanted.
Right. They said that's what someone said. That they've invaded all the countries that they invaded before, but this way, the way they did is they loaned the money. They loaned the money, and now everyone owes money to Germany. And someone figured out, you don't have to go to war.
Instead of the other way around.
Yeah, you got it. Yeah. Because Germany's the most, the richest nation in the EU. It's the one who loans out all the money. Therefore, you're indebted to them. Right. Okay, so let's create
that far ahead.
Bankroll. Yeah. Tomato. Go ahead, please. Somebody. Emily, so go ahead, please.
Oh, no, I was just going to say, I like this mystery so much because there really isn't a clear answer. I mean, any of these I could see being possible or something else we haven't even thought of.
If someone's going to do it, Hitler would have done it, I think. I think he'd have
one way or another.
Some kind of unit, okay, here we go. Get him on the plane, fly here, do this. If someone was going to do it, he'd do.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
It was never satisfactory that we didn't have a body.
Right. Yes. Right.
That's a story we heard.
And I heard that Stalin was just like obsessed to his dying day that Hitler was still alive. He wanted all the proof in the world, and they couldn't give it to him, really.
Yep.
So yeah, he was. So, what else about Hitler can we talk about? See, and this is Hitler night. Oh, you know what? Not that there's any connection, but let's salute Cobra, okay? We haven't done that. All right, ready?
I'm glad there's no connection.
You ready? All right, here we go.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Thank you, gentlemen. Lovelyly done. Just if I've seen a little less than enthusiastic than on the breath and heel of Hitler discussion, we remembered to salute me. I'm just glad that the palms weren't towards me and they were up against your temples. So
that's right. Well, all right, take our word for it.
I can give you what I think is the bottom line of the saucer bell mythos.
Okay.
And that is if we have Maria channeling and her cohorts channeling these strange saucer diagrams from this alleged other planet, and we have the alleged plans for the Nazi bell. If this stuff, if this is true, if there's substance to this, where are they? Why haven't they been used?
Yeah.
Why weren't they used at the end of World War II to turn the tables?
Right.
And even if they didn't have them ready by then, and if in fact some of the Nazis, whether Hitler survived or not, ended up somewhere. Why aren't they being used? I guess some people might say, well, that's some of the things we're seeing in the sky, but I'm a little skeptical, and it certainly wouldn't explain the entire spectrum of what we experience in modern day UFO reports.
Right. And I mean, anytime, believe me, I'm with you. I've seen the amount of material out there trying to link the Nazis with aliens and alien help and and all this stuff. It's unbelievable. I mean, there's artwork that looks like photographs. They're just crazy. But all you have to do is say, well, why did they lose the war? We're getting help from an alien race 44 light years. They can do this.
Maybe the alien race was incompetent.
Maybe.
Yeah. Why do we think they're always superior?
That's true. Very true. One, really.
Like the Bengals.
On top of it, like the Bengals, right. That's a very good comparison. Thank you.
What else can you say?
So
okay, you can go back to sleep now.
No. Don't ever say that on radio.
I did have the Bengals once, but I got rid of them with penicillin.
Oh, see, there's, Switchblade sees he sees a valley and he fills it with laughter. Thank you. So, what else can we talk about Hitler? I know a couple things about him. Believe it or not, he was a vegetarian. Did you know that? Never ate meat.
I never knew that.
Yeah, didn't eat meat
You told me.
ever in his life, and never drank alcohol.
Wow.
Never drank alcohol. They would have these big state dinners and stuff where everyone's drinking wine or whatever, and he'd always have apple juice.
Well, Mac, you addressed the. Oh, go ahead.
Next thing you're going to tell me he was Jehovah's Witness.
No, but I mean, you would think that he'd be like a raging drunk, know, and the rest of them were in, stuff,
Wow.
and I mean, they were all very well fed and so on, but he was high as he took 44 different medications a day, and there's like all kinds of different kinds of cocaine. The Nazis invented amphetamines. They gave it to their troops. The troops were on speed for most of the fighting and so on. So they did some strange things, and he wasn't adverse to taking pills and stuff, but no booze, no meat.
You addressed earlier the way that people just sort of went along with Hitler and believed him. There was a book I read years ago called Ominous Parallels by Leonard Peikoff, and he talks about the atmosphere and the political philosophies that were prevalent in Germany at the time, and what students were being taught in colleges. And they were learning a lot of stuff of like Immanuel Kant and Hegel and so forth. And his thesis was that a lot of these philosophies, there were no absolutes. You could kind of believe anything you wanted to. Mm-hmm. And he suggested, that's an oversimplification, but he suggested that that's what set the sort of atmosphere for somebody like Hitler to take over. Mm-hmm. If there's no absolute right or wrong, then you can think all kinds of things about other peoples and other ethnicities and so forth, and not feel any pang of conscience about it.
But he had this power, and he used to practice it. He used to take pictures of himself in front of the mirror, using the hand gestures and stuff. But when you see him giving a speech and you see, like the caption version, the English, he's not saying anything of grand scale. Okay, he's basically saying, we're going to build the highways, we're going to, clean up the rivers, we're going to put everyone to work. But the way he's saying
the delivery, that charismatic approach to everything that he did.
When he came into power, the first thing he said is, we're going to build the greatest highway in the world. Okay, so they built the Autobahn. They put a lot of people to work, gave everyone a shovel. They march out to the site and dig them. And to drive, I've never been on, but I hate to drive on. It's beautiful. The thing is that like 1 out of 20 Germans had a car. No one had any cars. But, through Hitler's kind of will, he said, hey, we're going to build these highways. No one has cars, but, we're still going to build the highways.
We'll be ready for it when everybody has cars.
And he tried to get the Volkswagen done. That's how the Volkswagen started. Yeah. So then that nasty thing called World War II interrupted it.
Damn.
So,
obviously, once you have the roads and you have to do something else, I don't know, Poland looks like a good place to go exercise.
There you go. It's a nice Sunday drive, right, in the fall.
And then when I go to the beach, that leads to France.
So,
it makes perfect sense.
Nice beaches. Okay. Yeah. It all makes sense now.
Paris is lovely this time of year.
You want snow? You invade Russia. See? There's a system.
There were a lot of skiers.
In the couple of minutes we have left, Emily, what any other weird quirks that you know about Adolf?
Well, I was going to say, when you were talking about his eating habits and how he was a vegetarian and he didn't drink, he also didn't smoke. And that piece plays into the theory of him committing suicide and that it wasn't him, because the person who people thought was Hitler, in the days leading up to the suicide, was in the bunker, eating meat, smoking, drinking.
Wow.
And I think somewhere I even read that he had like food spilled on his uniform, and Hitler himself was so meticulous. Like that never would have happened.
Right, right. Never had a stained uniform. The guy had more uniform.
Well, I do know a couple of vegans that when things got bad went off the wagon in a big way. So let's not completely rule out the fact that
That's my
could
view.
have possibly.
Not sure what that means, but okay, go ahead, please, Emily. We have about a minute and a half to go.
No, but yeah, he was definitely a quirky guy. I don't mean to say that to minimize him, but aside from the horrific things that he did, just as a person,
he's a quirky dictator.
Yeah, he was.
Okay.
And an awful person.
Right, and an awful person is right. Were there any other things? Didn't he have a sweet tooth or something along those lines?
He did, and I mean, I would think you would too if you didn't eat meat.
Okay.
He loves sweet.
Well, that seems like a 1-to-1. I think
you want to guess what his favorite pastry was?
That might wind up in the
Strudel.
book.
What was his favorite pastry?
Wiener Schnitzel.
No, wait a minute. What's his favorite
It's not a
pastry?
pastry, though.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay. I don't know. We give up. What is it?
Cupcakes.
Oh, man. Are you kidding?
I for one have to say that I'm offended that the word cupcakes was used again in this show after a lengthy discussion about not using that term.
Okay. Thank you, Cobra.
My legal department
Can't
will
help
take
it.
note.
Yeah. Okay. We should just
You know,
say.
Emily, I have to say this is like other words that I'm not allowed to use. I see you get to use the word cupcake, but the rest of us aren't. Okay, I get how this goes. I'm
If I go on Facebook and
Anybody
search for
can use the word
cupcakes,
cupcake.
am I going to get to you, Emily? If I
See.
What's that?
if I
that-
go on
that's crossing
Facebook
the
and do a
line.
search and type in cupcakes, is there going to be a
You won't find
surreptitious connection to you?
See, the floodgates are open now.
Yeah,
aren't they? Yep.
it's the Weinstein moment now. Thank you very
It
much.
is not the
Juan-Juan.
Weinstein moment. All right.
Well, anyway, I suppose I should say that this has been a presentation.
Do you have your
of,
Spider-Man hat on when you're doing this right now?
No, I don't. I'm
No,
sorry.
what are you wearing? You're the one who said I got dressed up in a costume tonight and refused to turn on
I
the
look like
camera."
Jim Jones tonight with the dark sunglasses.
Oh, the guy who
and
killed 800 people with the Kool-Aid? Yeah, what was going on? We
Wow,
should do a
that's
show
something
on that.
I remember
man.
that.
What?
Oh, man.
Yeah, what the heck? And all I can remember is that there's 800 dead bodies there, and someone goes, who's going to clean them up? So the nearest Air Force base, they just said,
England
hey,
Air Force Base.
yeah, they say, we're taking volunteers to take a trip down to Central America.
Yeah.
Who wants to go? And now they're down there.
I knew guys that were there. That
Yeah.
said it was one of the most horrible things they ever experienced.
How could it
and-
not be? Just
We got to do a show on Koresh, Jim Jones, and the Hale Bop guys.
the Hale Bop guys are the strangest.
Yeah.
They're the strangest, man. I've read a lot of stories about them, and I don't know how, because that was also a sexual cult, okay?
Yes.
And they had the guys castrated, and
Right.
the women were ready to,
Yeah.
boom, yeah.
Mm.
Yeah. How do you talk people into that? You know what I mean? How do you talk people into doing
You got to
that?
have somebody charismatic. You have to have somebody that's a
Who's
good
nuts.
convincing quality that this is the right way to go
Right. So
to Nirvana.
yeah, so you're insane. Every one of them was laying there, and they had a quarter, and then a Milky Way bar or something. Eat this on the way.
And they had a certain uniform on.
Right? Yeah,
So
they
the
all
sneakers and
yes, right, yeah.
Are you saying that they cut off their bangles?
Yes, we're back to
Yeah.
that.
Oh,
That is
wait a
correct.
minute. Hold it.
Which-
I'm not even sure what that is for. So anyway, well, thank you, Emily, for that report.
Sure.
And I'll tell you one thing I've learned about showbiz: punchlines are made to be stepped on. Don't forget.
And I'm just
All
going
right.
to make sure we leave on the fact that the Hellbot people did not have cupcakes. They were not allowed.
Oh, they're not
Leave
allowed.
with that.
Okay, all right. Okay, what did they have? Twinkies, ring dings? What?
They just laid down in their beds and they waited for the
Cobra. Yeah, they waited.
to
Well, they took poison.
shed their cocoon.
Water foil.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Join
Yeah,
the
strange.
comment.
I just want to know how you get like 20
Mortal coil,
women to
right.
go along with something like that. I mean,
I've heard of women going along with some things, but
yeah,
that's
but Manson had the same thing,
Yeah.
But I don't know. I don't know.
it's incredible.
It's another show. So hey, listen, let's thank everyone who was on tonight. We're going to thank
Emily.
Emily, thank you for joining us tonight on that report on Hitler. Sounds like you're
fascinated.
Switch,
you notice Emily's getting top billing all the time. Every time she's introduced.
I feared that when she came on the scene that my stature would be slipping.
Kick to the curb in just two shows.
No, there's no mystery here. I see 5 photos on the screen. Who would you give top billing to? Huh?
Emily.
I just thought the fact that Mack was a gentleman.
I do like how well groomed Switch is, though. In that
really?
picture. Yeah.
Oh wow, a well groomed Switch. Are you insinuating that he's not always
sending me some stuff on Facebook, and he's very well groomed.
That's how you're going to get in trouble, you two.
I got to give credit where credit's due.
These internets, you kids and your internet.
Yeah, I know.
It's going to be trouble.
I'm telling you, I knew I should have done it. I've been trying to avoid the stupid Facebook. I really have.
It has some positive aspects. You'll enjoy it.
I am enjoying it so far. I'm surprised. I am enjoying it more than I thought.
Oh, that's good. That's good to know, Juan-Juan. Yeah. Thank you. If you're happy, we're happy.
And there's nothing crude and rude on it. And
you're not going the right place.
I posted a bunch of Patriots things recently.
Oh, I'm sure the people across the country really appreciated that.
They were dying to hear my comment about Gronk or something.
All right.
Although I haven't posted anything recent about Gronk.
Oh, okay. All right. Hey, you never know. Something will come up this weekend. You'll guarantee it. Yeah. Anyway, well, thank you, Emily. Thank you, Switchblade, for joining us.
My pleasure.
And talking Nazis and
it's always fun to talk Nazis.
Yes, it is, right? Because they're insane. You know what I mean? They're crazy, but they rose to power. They were in like the Himalayas in 1938, 39, measuring people's heads because they thought they were the original Aryans.
Yeah.
And they're measuring people's heads. That's just crazy behavior,
Well, it's funny. They were interested in science as much as they were interested in warfare and ruling the world.
But the cult, too. They were really into the cult and the myths. And anyway, all right.
God.
So thank you, Emily. Thank you, Switch. We're going to thank Mr. Jamison for telling us the story about his father who worked for the OSS and who brought Nazi scientists here to the United States. And, they became the foundation of what became NASA. But a real hero that... we're glad to give the story about, because, you hear the people, thousands of people did stuff like that. You never hear of them. So he's a veteran. We're giving him a chance for a story to be told. Cobra, thank you very much for joining us. Thank you to Carmen Sclafani, right? Yep. Okay. Looking over us down there in New York City.
And I'll screw up his name more often now.
Don't forget to mention Bob.
The Ghost of Bob.
Ghost of Bob. Thank you, Bob, for flicking the lights.
He flicked the lights on again
on here.
About a microsecond.
And Juan-Juan wetting himself again. Wasn't a pleasant thing to see. But
not.
That's okay.
How dare
Psychic encounters.
Yeah, there you go. Coco, thank you for joining us. Juan-Juan, thank you for joining us.
You're welcome.
Okay, and thank you, the listening audience, for joining us. And we'll be
what?
We'll be back. Oh, I got to do the plug. Wiser Time is the name of the band who is doing some of the bumpers tonight, and Carmine's band, that is Wiser Time.
Right, yep.
So the music you'll be hearing tonight is by Wiser Time. Go on Amazon.com, look for the Wiser Time CD. Really cool music. Thank you to our listening audience, and until you hear us next time, hopefully next week, until then, be safe, be happy, and
bye-bye.
When we go out to eat, we never agree on where to go.
I want burgers! Pizza.
Tacos it is.
The one thing we do agree on is we all want unlimited high-speed data. That's why we switched to Metro PCS.
Stop by Metro PCS with the whole family and get 4 lines with unlimited LTE data for just $100, period. Metro PCS. Wireless. Figured out.
Coverage not available in some areas. Offers require port-in of number not currently active on T-Mobile network. During congestion, the fraction of customers using more than 35 gigs per month may notice reduced speeds. Video streams at up to 40p. No tethering. See store for details and terms and